Today we have a Craftsman Mulcher standard lawnmower. Deck is pretty good condition, pretty solid. The cable's good. Went to do the motor, however, and noticed a couple things. I cleaned the carburetor. It was pretty nasty. Put a new filter. That's a new plug. And I got it started, but it would die almost instantly, which is usually a carburetor problem, but I cleaned it, which is odd. But in addition to that, it shakes. It shakes really bad. So I flipped it over. I should have done this in the very beginning. I wasted my time, but be good here soon. But the crank shaft is bent, so there's really no fixing that. You can buy another one. It's not worth it, especially for a motor of this type, so we're not going to. I clipped off the fuel line real quick to make sure, because this does have fuel in it, that we're not going to be leaking. But this is the reason why sometimes if you have a new carburetor or a cleaned carburetor and it still dies as soon after. So right here underneath the cover, to remove the cover, you just pull on the tube. There's usually a screw in that, but I already took it off. It's 5/16, and then there's usually 4 screws on this one as well. And again, I already took those off for a time. There's right here, and then 2 in the front. Probably keep that piece. So in addition to it being pretty nasty, if you look right here, you'll notice it shakes. It's not supposed to shake. Let me grab this real quick so you can get a better view. So this is the magneto. It's the part that gives spark to the engine or motor. So I'm going to take that off real quick. I'll probably keep that part too. Move that off to the side. If you look right in here, there's a crack. The intake it's right here for the motor, and then it comes up on this little tube, and then the tube elbows and goes to the carburetor. This tube is plastic, and maybe someone stepped on it, fell over, I don't know. Either way, that's cracked. That's usually pretty easy, just a 1/4 inch screws on that, replace it, put it in the carburetor, no problem. But since it's a bent crankshaft, there's no point. So what I'm going to do is I have another 6 horsepower motor, and I'm going to put it on here, and I'll bring you back once this was taken off and the new one's put on. The bottom just has 3 bolts. They're usually 1/2 inch or 9/16 or something, and then just make sure to take off the cable right here before you do so. And what I'm going to do after that is the new motor I'm going to put on there. It's been sitting for a while. Carburetor is probably bad. This is a good tank. This is a good carburetor. I'm going to take off the carburetor, take off the tank, switch them, and put everything back on, and then hopefully we'll have a good running motor. Okay, so the motor's off. Like I said, 3 bolts on the bottom. The blade comes off first. Put the new one on. It's just a little hard to film that with needing multiple people. It's a lot easier. So let's take off this. That's just a 5/16. Air filter's not horrible, but not great. This little case, air cover, turns into a pretty good screw holder. These are also 5/16, and that's not even tight. So we're going to be replacing the tank too. The tank has 3 bolts on the top. They are also 5/16. That one wasn't tight at all. Okay. Another one. And the final. Take those out. Okay, so this is what I was talking about earlier, the intake tube being broken. Just taking the carburetor off, this came with it. So that's, detrimental. And then this actually somehow just seized on there, so I had to break off the tank. We're not going to use that anymore. I'm going to take the cover, this cover off the other one as well, and I think it has a better string on it anyway, so to do that, you take a 3/8. Here's 4 screws. One right there, one right there. These are different, so put them in a different location than the other ones. The other 2 are going to be back there. The unfortunate part about it is the oil dipstick tube also has a 5/16 on it. And there we go. Just pop that off. I don't care about this tank anymore, so I'm not going to worry too much about it. On the bottom down here, there is a 3/8 bolt on the tank. After you take that off, the tank should come right off. There's also a spacer on the bolt. Keep that. If you don't, you'll be cranking down that one and it'll just crack your tank if you don't put that back on. Then back here, another 3/8. Let's see. They should be different unless this has been a kind of weird mower anyway. Yeah, it's a little bit longer. And another one. Take that off. This should come off. Sometimes it gets stuck right up here with this little bracket, but yeah, and there it is. Okay, so I'm going to do the same thing to the other cover, put it back on, put the tank on, the carburetor on. I'll bring you back when I'm at the point for the carburetor so I can show how it links up and everything. Okay, I'll be right back. Okay, so put the tank back on, same thing, 3 bolts. This is the part I was talking about. This is the bolt that's on the bottom. That's a 3/8. This is a spacer. On the tank, there's something that looks very similar to this, except it's mounted to the tank. You put this into the tank first and this behind it. So, you can usually do that by feel. You can find it. There we go. There we are. And then just put the bolt in. 3/8. And the impact's on the low setting. I think the top, that's too tight. Let's take the top off a little bit so we have a little bit of room. This again. There we go. And a little kiss. There we go. The tank is nice and secure. So, like I said, this is a brand new carb. Well, brand new cleaned carb. So right here, sometimes these are plastic. There's usually in one hole, it just goes in there. If the plastic ones, you'd be very careful. Put this in because you can't snap this off. This is the butterfly valve. So usually there's not a fuel line on there, but you just put the linkage through, straighten it out. And then on the intake, the part that was broken, there's a little seal, like a just a little black seal here. I'll take it off. You want to make sure that it's on. It's, this one's a little dirty. It's cleaned that up a little bit. But it's still pretty pliable. So that one's fine. It doesn't really have to be pressed on there too tight. Just kind of put it on there and the carb will suck it down. Now, this is the hard part. I've done a lot of these, but if this is your first one, you probably shouldn't be using power tools. I would recommend doing like a ratchet, but at least for mine, I put about halfway. Where's the other one? Here we go. And then I do the other side. There's 2 bolts. I just Screws right into the little mounting plate. Get a little kiss, go back, little kiss, and that's it. Okay, let me grab something real quick here. So I purchased these in bulk. Now, this is a gasket that goes on this right in the back. Sometimes, how this ends up working is when you press down the primer, I'm going to clean this up a little bit more, of course, but shot of air goes through, and then on the back of it, it kind of rides along the carburetor and the gasket into a little hole that's inside the carburetor. And what that does, it causes pressure to build in the bowl, which then shoots gasoline in there. I've found that if you just use the gasket, you have to be very careful not to over torque it. If you over torque it, this plate will bend and you won't have a good seal. I've taken maybe 4 or 5 of them. I've used them. I need to make some more now. But I've taken just a smallest amount of black RTV and put it in that area on the face that's touching here, on the back of it, where that way it kind of makes a seal. And I let it dry overnight, so it's not sticky or anything. It just has like a rubbery consistency to it. And what that does, it makes a very, very thin skin on the gasket. And if you have problems pumping, that will be a good solution. You don't always have to do that. This one doesn't have it, but if you do have a problem pumping, that is a good alternative to having to buy a whole new plate. You could always do that if you want to, but I found that works very, very well. The only real drawback to it is that you can never really take it off. So if you need to take it off, sometimes you can save the gasket. If you do that, then the gasket's pretty much gone. So it's pretty much a one-time thing. Go ahead and line that up yet again. I know, impact, but I'm going very slow. I've done this probably hundreds of times. If you do use it, make sure that you're always careful you're not cross-threading or anything. You don't want to go very tight. You just want to go snug like that. It's probably perfect. Yeah, probably a little too tight. And there's a third one up here, kind of helps anchor it. There's really nothing bad if you over tighten that one. It's not the end of the world. It might just crack, and if it does, you have to get a new one, so be careful. Okay, I'm going to unclamp the fuel line. This is full fuel, so I didn't want to risk maybe the fuel line coming off. New filter, put that on. Let's blow it off real quick here. There we go. Okay. So this is back on. Probably should have covered the intake, but it wasn't too bad. And again, be very careful, don't overdo it. And now the cover, pretty simple. Sometimes you have to take the pull cord and go through a little hole, but now this one just has a little slot. You line it up on, there we go, and then just 2 Phillips head screws. They just kind of screw directly into the fuel tank, that little ring that's on the front of it that we anchored it to the motor to. And now that is it. I'm going to, final part of it is take off the spark plug. And yet again, I know you're not supposed to do that. There we go. That one wasn't even on tight. It wasn't. Yeah, that's pretty nasty. So, brand new spark plug. Going inside, making sure not to cross thread it. There we go. And very, very slowly. There we go. Plug that in, and now the cable is on. So when you pull the bail, it should kill it. I think the only thing now is we are going to put it down. It has oil. Everything's good. I mean, it's not great oil. It's pretty clean, but still might change it. And it has fuel. Now I think the only thing to do is to pull the cord, put it on the little hanger, and get it started. I'll go ahead and put it down, and we'll meet there. Okay, so it's down. I have a bag for it, I believe, so I'm going to go get that bag after. But so far, oil, clean, new plug, new filter, going to be pressure washed, maybe touched up a little bit. Cable, perfect. New pull cord, so I don't have to be worried. Going to be priming it, 1 or 2, 3 times the lazy. And pulling the barrel down. There it is. Not wanting to monoxide myself in the garage. I'm just going to let that run. Open the door. Going to pressure wash it and find the bag. Put this out. Probably adjust the wheels because there's like 4 different settings on it. Lube up the connections after pressure washing it, and that should be about it. This should be a good old mower. When I put the blade on too, I replaced the engine. I sharpened it and balanced it, so it should be ready. That shouldn't be a problem anymore. I'll probably zip tie the cable down so it's not flopping in the wind, and this should be a good one for a long time. Have any questions, feel free to comment. Hope you liked it, and make sure to subscribe. Thank you.